the Sacred Knowing of Is video series, interview number 14 with Tisziji Muñoz. I had some questions.
Chapters what?
I had some questions regarding chapters 111 to 114.
Okay.
From chapter 111, you write, all beings are equally unequal. Since you said that all beings are equally unequal, are all beings seen as equal in the eyes of God and or in the world of spirit?
Well, it really depends upon what God we're talking about. If we're talking about a Christian God, there may be some sense of equality or inequality about that, or the biblical God. But if we're talking about a more universal New Age sense of God as being love itself, then of course all beings are equal in the manner of speaking. They are its beings. All beings are its beings, equally. And the issue of equality or inequality then is relative to the state of consciousness and the functioning of any individual in the manner that they function, that would determine for themselves whether they are good or bad, fortunate or misfortunate, awakened or unawakened, asleep and so on. So it's really about what you do and whether or not you feel as an individual, not so much about the God, the Almighty, the total reality itself, but in what sense you feel your relationship to that is. And it is not then a matter of equality or inequality. It's a matter of heartfulness. Where is your heart? Not so much where are your judgments relative to what is equal or unequal, unequal. Where's your heart?
Is it delusional for one to believe that their efforts and convictions will someday help to bring about world peace and happiness to everyone?
Goodness breeds goodness. You do good, the good speaks for itself. And so, yes, it's delusional to think beyond the point, say, in terms of what is real, what is not real, what is possible, and what is not possible. But for the creative intelligence, it's always about what seems to be impossible that, motivates them to do the impossible, which they make possible. So the impossible is something we need to make possible in terms of what it is we can do and want to do or need to do or hope to do to improve things on this devastated planet. It's in devastation. It's in wreckage right now. And it's up to us to try and heal the way somehow. And people of power should think more about that and not just focus on themselves and allow their overwhelming selfishness to rule their capabilities or their interest or their life pattern. We have heart, so we should think in terms of heart. How do we help the hearts of those who cannot otherwise be helped? That's Christian. And that's Jesus, ministering to the poor, the sick, and those who are more or less forgotten and cast aside, the downcast. How do we do that? It's hard to see that in operation today at the government level in this country. Because you have one party that wants to help out and the other party says, no. We don't have enough to help them out. It's not enough to go around to help the poor people out, or the minorities as such. When it's the Caucasians that are becoming the minority in the near future. So we have to work from the heart, and not from ourselves, and not from our face, and not from our skin color, but from the heart. Jesus made no references to the skin color, but he made references to peace in the inner life of each individual. That is to say, he was more universal, more real and practical in the manner of speaking in his philosophy. He laid it out, and he laid himself out, to prove his point. So there are very few we see. Many believe, many have faith, but very few who can walk that path to crucifixion, happily. And he not only willingly did it as far as the historic line goes, but he said it was supposed to happen. And there was no other way he was going to glorify his Father save by the sacrifice that he had to make to prove it. I'm not saying that's valid today particularly, but that's a very strong example of one of us, say humans, who's been on the planet. That's a good example. How many are willing to give up themselves to any degree near that, and then call yourself Christian? Say, shoot.
In chapter 111 you write, humans must never wait for society to advance and liberate them, just as progressing spirits must not wait for their guides in churches to advance and progress them. Is waiting ever appropriate in terms of spiritual practice, or is it always seen as a curse or hindrance to spiritual progression?
Waiting is a natural process. Waiting is now. We are now waiting. And we can wait in the spirit of, let's say, receiving spiritual grace and light. Or we can wait in the, let's say, fury of emotional turbulence and confusion, where there's no room for any spiritual light at all. There's nothing, no space at all for it. In other words, you can spend your time here used up by the dark forces, or you can spend your time here, let's say, if you're involved in the dark forces, coming to terms with the light and undergoing the battle, or let's say the struggle for freedom. And let's say, let's call it the path to light. So it's up to the individual to determine what to wait for and if something is worth waiting for. But I dare say that the Spirit is always present. So you don't have to wait for that. It's waiting for you. Why wait when it's already upon you, peeps?
Is it spiritually lawful for a guide to hold someone back or delay them from progressing under certain circumstances?
It depends on what the arrangement is. It depends on, if we're talking about a level of knowledge and wisdom that the person can't comprehend, of course it's better to wait until they have a command of the language and understand what is before them. Of course, you have to wait. You have to know when to do certain things. See? So the use of time it can be sacred in that sense. Waiting for the right time, for agriculture, let's say. To wait time to get up in the morning to meet the sun. That's to be the right time. So there's evidence for what the right time could be, and there's purpose behind that. So we have to know when we are beyond certain lessons, and then we have to know when we're not beyond certain lessons. And so in certain traditions they say, well, it's only after you have burnt certain seeds are you ready to move on. That's clear. You have to die to the old self, see, and awaken into the new self, completely. This is not just a theory or some poetry in motion here. This is a creative process in miniature. So you have to die and be reborn. See? And every morning we can be reborn. But are we reborn into the new, or are we actually being reborn into the old?
Would you say that current day society is better off or worse off spiritually than those civilizations of the past?
In the past, as in now and in the future, there will be those who are spiritually disposed and are living outside of the barriers and karmic field of time, yet involved in it. We are in the world, but we don't have to be the world. We are in time, but we can't be time. See, we are always the now. The fact of spiritual realization has to do with the beingness, the here-ness, and the now-ness. This is the fact. This is what, if you can't, because you're a time machine, you can't slow down enough, you can't create time to be at peace, in stillness, then that's why you need to bring yourself to a practice of stillness. See, not because stillness is your destiny, but because stillness is your balance. And you need the balance. You need sleep, and you need rest, and then you need action and movement and things to do. That's part of it. So we need our rest and our peace, our healing, as well as our stress, see, our anxieties and our frustrations in life. It has to be balanced. And then going beyond that is transcending the sense of one and the other. Transcending it, so you're not really being neither and capable of both, even more completely.
Do you think it's possible that someday conventional society will transform and or evolve in its current understanding and acceptance of human sexuality and gender definition?
We have many eons to wait for that. In terms of world domination, you're talking indirectly in terms of world domination. And will the dominant society ever reach that level that you're projecting, of peace and enlightenment? That's something that has to do with our internal apparatus, our consciousness, see, not our physical world. Our physical world is what it is. It's a physical world, right? It's a foundation for all levels of consciousness, not excluding the highest and the ultimate consciousness. So it's a matter of bringing that from the inside, going back to the old reference to the kingdom of God within, has to do with your awakenment. You have to awaken to what it is and bring the light out into this world. It's your spiritual contribution. See? And it may not affect everybody at the same time. Sometimes we need some kind of cataclysm of cosmic proportions or biblical event, see, to bring people for the moment into the same reference of feeling and awareness. But that's momentary. A catastrophe, see, it's momentary reference, because you're still in your own state of mind, in your own time world, even though the catastrophe makes everybody experience it seemingly and be aware of it at the same time. It's still only that. It's a moment of it. You're in your own time world and you're participating in this world, in its time world, on Earth with a whole bunch of other peeps, according to our agreements to be here together on this ship called Earth. And for the moment, yes, we seem to have some common ground, but we're still individuals from other universes. We're still connected to other dimensions at the same time. But for the moment, inhabiting the Earth in the physical form, we have some common basis, but it's not real. We are not this. See, this is not what it is. It only appears to be such. See? So we must never be fooled with what appears to the eyes, because what it is you can't see with your eyes. You can't hear with your ears, you can't smell with your nose, and you can't taste with your mouth. You can't touch with your body. So what it is then a big question. Okay?
So if we evolved from our current understanding and acceptance of human sexuality and gender definition, would this be considered progress, spiritually speaking?
Would you read that just a bit slower?
If we did evolve
Yes.
from our current understanding and acceptance of human sexuality and gender definition,
Yes.
would this be considered progress, spiritually speaking?
Yes, of course. We're spirits first. We're not egos, right, with preferences and desires and likes and dislikes, cultured problems and solutions, prejudices and judgments and bigotry. Nobody is any of that. That's the clothing you wear. Nobody is really that. See? We're heart beings. Push comes to shove and somebody hits your kid, that's what you are. Right? And you're going to zing off on that. Right? You want to save your child. Well, that's the God principle. All of its children, right? We have to save all of them, not just yours, not just mine. They all need to be saved. See, that's the heart at its best. Let's not just save my kid and let everybody else's kid go to hell. Let us save all the kids. Common ground, universal wisdom, heart wisdom, universal heart consciousness. That makes sense.
So what are your thoughts then on those who would feel that homosexuality is a sin?
They have a perversion and a delusion of intelligence. Your child is your child. Your child is someone who you owe, as a parent or a relative, your heart love to. It's not about, why do we, as human animals, always make it about the groin? Why the groin in the toilet, peeps? Why not the heart? Let's get out of the toilet for a minute and get to where the heart is. All right? You who are preoccupied with genitals make me feel a little bit strange. We have groinal people. That's a species now. The groins, the groiners. Those are the ones concerned about what you do with your groin. The groiners. Okay? Well, we have to grow up instead of groin down and be more gracious for all of life and grateful that we have this, let's say, opportunity to serve others and help them heal. So everybody's in need of healing, especially the so-called visibly, obviously normal. They have their issues, their problems, and their derangements. They need to take care of their derangements before they start poking their noses in the business of other people who are more obviously deranged, but maybe more spiritually in tune.
From chapter 111, you go on to write, the very nature of humankind must be changed at its root, the sex organs, which are powerfully connected to the brain and heart. In what way can the nature of humankind change or be upgraded through the sex organs?
You know, I never heard any commandment in any scripture so far that said, thou shalt be or not be concerned about the genitals. You know, making that the big issue. That's only the big issue when it comes to unenlightened, sexually neurotic peeps who are living secret lives of perversion. And it shows up in these concerns, which have no reality. Who cares about what other people do in kindness to one another? It could never be my business as such. See, so we need to treat people with dignity, respect, right? And with graciousness in order to be a leader in the world. A leader. See? And where in anybody's mind is forgiveness? There's no forgiveness here. There's no forgetting here. See, so there's no progression here. So you say picking on faults that are perceived. They're not real. They're perceived by humans. Written in books by humans, right? About what certain humans like and don't like. Can't tolerate. Intolerance is not divinity. Intolerance in this sense is demonic. Divinity is peace, toleration, right? And compassion, cooperation, yeah. Healing, right? And then when you have violence on your doorstep, then you have to deal with it. You have to put a different hat on. But unless it's at your doorstep, keep the peace. Abide by the laws. See, be lawful, in a sense. Spiritually lawful and socially lawful. Otherwise you're bringing more on yourself than you can handle or ever could expect to manage, in a sense. See? So we have to be aware, see, first. And gracious. I have my life. Thank you. I'm very grateful for the little bit I have. We should take from that script, see, and follow the masters on that. Know more about you and what you are than what you've been programmed to feel and believe you are. Go deeper. Find out the truth about your nature as a human spirit. Yeah?
Do beings who are considered strong intellectually have an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of spiritual progression?
They could have an advantage in terms of spiritual progression because they read. And if they have intelligence, then they can read and comprehend much more quickly. It doesn't mean they have intuition. But if they have intelligence, then they can know about these things. And if they apply it, then they can advance in these ways. But for others who do not have the intelligence, then it's a much slower path, unless they have an advanced intuition of what it is. So many who are uneducated, like natives, are very advanced spiritually, but they can't talk to you about things of the world in the same way that others can. Maybe in this age right now, in the digital age, you have more natives that are just as savvy, who have PhDs and have everything that everybody else has and accomplished everything that everybody else has accomplished. But we hope they're not lacking in their native traditional wisdom, right? Because that's where the power is in the wisdom. Not all the materialism you can accumulate and wrap yourself up in and get lost in and be drowned and destroyed by, so to speak, and go down with it. No, we want to talk about wisdom that enables you to open your heart and your mind to the universe so that there is a sense of alignment and resonance that keeps the heart as something of beauty and greatness instead of the self of what?
From chapter 112, you write, other spirit souls may develop the ability to contemplate the divine silence and simultaneously allow it to speak through them. Must one be spiritually advanced and or have reached a certain level of consciousness in order to recognize and or channel divine silence, or can divine silence speak through someone at any given moment in spite of any distractions that may exist on the part of the individual doing the channeling?
That's a very long question. I mean, that sounded like a book. Now, what I will say, divine silence is waiting for everybody. Right? It's waiting. It's knocking at our door anytime you feel bad, right? Anytime you feel anxious and neurotic, and you want to pounce on yourself or somebody else, that's the divine silence knocking on your door, saying, "Hello, could you stop and take a pause here? You know, I'm waiting to receive you, and you're waiting to receive what I am." It's always here. It's always here. You don't have to be beaten into it. Like in stories I had from my friends who were in combat in Vietnam, said they were under the worst conditions, but under those worst conditions they felt peace, which is not to say that you have to be under the worst conditions to feel peace, but peace is never anywhere else. It's always here, but we are not open to it at its level. Because we are terrified, we are, suffering our condition. Not because the condition that we have is suffering, but because of our interpretation and understanding or lack of understanding of what is going on is such that we suffer. Okay? We suffer not knowing properly about things, which once known properly relieve you of suffering, okay? And free you from ignorance and not understanding, and give you what is called an enlightenment, or as I've been calling it for the musicians, ensoundment. See? Keeping you of sound mind, and I mean that literally, sound, spiritual sound, musical mind, okay? Spiritual musical mind. Okay? Not just popular musical mind, but spiritual musical mind. Some of which could be popular, some of which is beyond that.